Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Tom Wells here. Today is Monday, September the 10th, 2018, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, your first daily dose of happy for the day and for the week for that matter. And so we are here to try to get your week off to a great start because contrary to popular belief, Mondays do not have to be dull, boring, depressing days because the weekend is over. And the good news is if we can find a way to turn that into a positive, if we can find what the positives are on a Monday, amazingly, the rest of the week goes better. And better things happen. The week becomes more enjoyable. The work becomes easier. The play becomes better. Everything goes better just because we start off the week well. So, Tom, this is actually what I consider to be the most important show of the week, the first one on first thing Monday morning. So we have a very heavy responsibility to try to pick things up here.
We've got to lift up everybody.
Yeah, everybody has to be lifted up, but not a big problem at all. And we have a good topic for today because the topic has to do with feeling. And feeling is one of those things. It's appropriate too that I think that two males are doing this topic. Because of the stereotype, right? You know, males are not feeling types. We don't feel anything, right? Yeah, we're the tough He-Men, right? No way. Yeah. It doesn't happen that way. That's not the way things are. And in fact, if we try to be that way, we end up creating that really miserable week I was talking about that we want to try to avoid. So yeah, we got to get into that good feeling place. And by the way, we also have one of our listeners calling in, somebody who called in with my show with Joel on Thursday. I can see that he's connected in. He's going to be waiting to talk to us in just a minute. So that's going to be 3 males talking about feelings. I mean, this is like a world record here.
Okay, this is going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, it's going to be good. But before we bring him in, let's get the topic going because you picked a topic that is well, we've already said it's a very good way to start the week, but it's a topic that also has repercussions that we don't think about. I mean, you're bringing it up in terms of how do we handle feelings? How do we deal with them? How do we approach them? Do we ignore them? Do we pay close attention to them? Do we dive deep into them? Do we worry about the negative ones? What do we do? That's an important topic, and I'm not sure exactly what the impetus was behind it, but tell us what your mindset is on this topic.
Well, this is something that I'm looking at a lot these days because of in my coaching, I've learned, and I've mentioned this, I'm sure, on other podcasts, but I've learned over time that one thing that people do, my clients do, and that I do, is we look for ways to quickly dismiss feelings or to quickly get on to a better feeling thought, or some way to just distract ourselves from whatever we are feeling so that we can, get to this idea that I feel better. But the question is, do we feel better, or are we somehow trying to alter our feelings in order to get to the happy place? And it's really important to get to the happy place. That's what, we want to live in a place that feels good, but But we also, this is this point that I mentioned in another show, is that we have this emotional guidance system. And if we look at our emotions, our feelings as guides, they're literally a way that we find out how to discover our alignment with our higher source self. And so if that is indeed what feelings are, what is it to let ourselves actually feel those feelings fully until they've given us the message that they have to give us, instead of always saying, oh, this feels lousy, I want to get out of this feeling.
Yeah, right.
That's the natural inclination.
Sure.
And it doesn't, and I'm not encouraging people to wallow in horrible feelings, but, this is all about myself. I'm doing this a lot these days. I'm asking myself when a feeling comes up, well, first of all, what is it I'm feeling? So let's say I'm with my friend and she says something that pushes some buttons in me. Do I just say, oh, that's just the way she is, and I'm going to just have to learn to live with that? Or do I say, oh, why do I feel that way? She doesn't really mean it that way. Or I go into blame. Maybe I say, man, she always does that. Why does she do that? It pisses me off, and I go into that. So there's so many different ways we can deal with what comes up. And so this podcast is about when stuff comes up, can we just take all the extemporaneous things out of it and feel the feeling as a guidance telling us how to get back into alignment. Now, I'm not saying that you'll get back into alignment in 5 minutes or 5 seconds or even in 5 hours, but feel the feeling is what I'm suggesting. Let the feeling inform you. Let the feeling inform me of what it is to get back into alignment by witnessing it, just being with it for a while. Don't immediately just find a way to obliterate it. That's kind of what this is about.
Well, it kind of makes sense because when we try to just obliterate it by firing laser bolts at it or whatever, essentially all we're doing is making it more powerful anyway. So that approach isn't going to make any positive difference, I wouldn't think. So there's a definite advantage to knowing, well, like you said, first of all, what the feeling is. Perhaps having an idea of where it came from. I have found that I've gotten to the point now where I'm pretty sure where all the feelings come from because I know where I'm not feeling so good in my life, and it doesn't really surprise me. But I also remember a time back when I was first exploring the law of attraction when I'd have a feeling and I wasn't sure where it was coming from. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about. You're feeling bad, you're not feeling good about something, but you don't necessarily know why or even what it's all about.
Yeah. That's right. And I don't think we have to know. I mean, we might get something might come up and, we're feeling like I'm feeling mad at my friend and I'm blaming them. And then I think, oh yeah, I guess this is, all of a sudden I might say, this is how I felt towards my mom when I was 7 years old and blah, blah, blah. And I think that can be helpful, but it isn't necessary to know all the origins of everything. I think what I want to say in this podcast is, consider just being with the feeling and accepting it and finding a way to, for example, when you're meditating, just get in touch with your breath and then let yourself feel how this feeling feels inside of you and watch it evolve, watch it dissipate, watch it dissolve, watch it transform over time. And if it sticks around, it just happens to be a big feeling that you're getting, that's going to get you back into alignment. So it's sort of giving feelings a huge positive value, saying that if I'm feeling something and I can really feel what this feeling is and just witness it without attaching a whole bunch of stories to it, then it will bring me back into alignment. That's the thing that is unique about what we're saying here, is that the feeling will bring you back to alignment by you witnessing it instead of dancing around it or covering over it with all kinds of other things. Like sometimes, for example, like say a compulsion to eat a whole bunch of cookies that puts on a whole bunch of weight on your body is really coming from a feeling of sadness that's just not being felt. And a person might go years not feeling that sadness, but when they finally accept the fact that the reason that they go after the cookies and the sugar so much is because they're feeling a fundamental deep sadness inside themselves, and they sit with that sadness in meditation and they breathe into it and they feel where they feel it in their body, and they don't immediately cover it over with the next sugar product, then they can actually get to the place where that will no longer be in their body. That feeling of sadness was just something that had in a sense was in there from a long time ago, and they're keeping it alive by continually finding a way to just cover it over with the sugar.
Whereas focusing on the feeling itself and actually feeling it, you're saying, particularly in this case where we aren't really sure where it's coming from, in that case, what we're doing really is, in my words, dissipating it. We're giving it the opportunity to kind of come out in the open, be seen for what it is, and then we can let go of it so that we can get back into that better feeling place. Because that is where we're trying to get to, right? We're trying to get to that better feeling place.
It's all about sort of like if you've had feelings that are not being felt, that are in your body in a sense, and they might be triggered right now by the relationships you're in or some work situation that's frustrating the heck out of you, or something else that's triggering this feeling inside you to feel really angry, to feel really sad, to feel really fearful. Um, but are you dealing with allowing yourself to just feel the feeling that's there? So it's something that each one of us could ask ourselves, how we're dealing with feelings. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just a suggestion that we are largely a feeling machine, and our emotional guidance system is a very beautifully created thing that we can eventually get to the point where if a feeling feels debilitating, like the level of fear we feel around something, or anger or sadness or whatever it is, we can get to the point where those feelings no longer are debilitating, and in fact they hardly even come up anymore. So that we get more and more free. That's what I'm calling aligning with source.
Mm-hmm.
When we know more and more that we really are this being that is here for freedom, it's here for joy, it's here to feel good. But we don't get there by not listening to our feelings. We get there by feeling these feelings and going through those feelings to get to the other side, you might say, of alignment with source.
All right. Well, I think you've laid out the topic pretty well. Like I said, we do have one of our listeners listening. He actually called in for the first time this past Thursday, and we got to know Louis. And so, Louis, let's bring you on the show. And what do you think? I mean, what's your take? Are you finding that when you're dealing with your negative feelings, that it's because stuff that you perhaps didn't really know where the source was, and the kind of approach Tom was talking about here is actually helping you?
Hi, Walt and Tom. Thanks for letting me be on the program.
Yeah, glad to
Hi,
have you.
Louis.
Always love listening to people talking about my favorite subject.
Yeah, it's our favorite subject too. That's why we keep talking about it.
Okay, so I'll just give you a little example of what happened yesterday.
Okay.
There was a lady who was chatting, and she was saying, and she's got a bit of a cold, and she was sneezing. And she says, "Oh, I hope you don't get my cold. I hope you don't get my cold." So I looked at her and I smiled and I said, "That statement you've just made to me, how did it make you feel?"
Mm.
He said, "Oh, not very good, not very good." So I said, do you know what's happening? What is happening is your soul is saying to you, source energy, the non-physical part of you, is saying to you, hey, Jocelyn, what you've just thought is not in alignment with what I know.
How did you react to that?
So she looked at me and said, oh, okay. So I said, we live in a world of attraction. So we live, as everyone says, we live in an attraction-based universe where there is no insertion. And when you break that down, you understand that everybody has inside them their non-physical part, which has the power to create worlds. So anybody can resist a cold or germs from anywhere if they're not a vibrational match to it, if they're not focused on some kind of negativity, etc.
This is true.
So I said to her, wouldn't a statement like, "Oh, I know everybody is a powerful being and can keep their alignment and health if that's their focus, and it's not my job to worry about other people catching my cold." And she looked at me and thought about it. She said, "Well, that actually feels a lot better than the statement, 'Oh, I hope you don't catch my cold.'"
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now, if it feels better to you, it's saying to you, you're now more in agreement with your higher self, and it's saying, that thought is better than the other one. So slowly but surely, and I got a lot of good feedback from the group I was in, saying, I never looked at it like that, and that's an interesting way of putting it, and all the rest of it. And I find for myself that whenever I'm having negative emotion, I'm saying, my higher self doesn't agree with the thinking, because there's this thing about Westerners. We tend to love to separate the mind and the emotions.
Isn't that true?
If you have a
Really,
look
really
at it,
true.
the thought creates a feeling, and the feeling affects the thought. The two are completely intertwined and they're not separate. So I find it very, very important not to separate the two and to realize that your thoughts are making the feelings, and then the feelings are now helping you. When you know what you don't want, when you're feeling the negative feeling, you want to do what Tom is recommending there. You follow the rocket of desire of what you do want.
By the way, I have to give you credit too for something there, Louis. I have to give you credit.
Always possible. Somebody who's got a fear of spiders, for example, which is extreme, and they shut down when they see them, not going to be able to follow that rocket of desire. And the longer they sit in focusing on the fear of spiders, it's just going to freeze them more, and they're not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So then I would suggest to them that they change the subject. Okay, because the subject of spiders is freezing them. Go to another subject that is going to unfreeze you. Okay, go to something that you love, your puppy that you can stroke and you really enjoy, etc. So you go to that feeling thought. When you're in the higher vibrational place, then you can maybe look back at the spider problem, and whenever you make decisions when you're happy, they tend to be good ones. And when you make decisions when you're not happy, they tend not to work out very well. So I would suggest for somebody who's frozen in a negative thought, fear, for a long period of, or can't get out of it, changes the subject. But for example, my daughter, who's, for the last 3 years has been 10 years old now, and she's had 3 years of law of attraction training. She said to me one day, "Dad, I can't follow the rocket of desire now." I said, "Yeah, sometimes it takes a bit longer than others." And she looked at me, frowned a little bit, ran away, went back to sitting on the couch, crying a little bit. And then she was with her friends, and she came back to me about 10 minutes later. I said, Dad, I feel much better now. Yeah, sometimes it does take longer.
That's the great thing about being a kid, too, because kids tend to respond more easily than adults. They don't have the baggage built up that we do. And it's fun to watch how fast they turn around on that. But I wanted to give you credit on something. I got to give you credit. If you're able to remember whenever you're feeling bad, whenever you're feeling down for whatever reason, that it's because you are out of alignment with what your inner being is saying, I give you credit. I usually can't remember that. I'm still trying to deal with, I have to get to a better feeling place. I can't even remember the out of alignment to the inner being part. So I just wanted to give you credit for that. I think that's fabulous that you're doing that.
I think that's fascinating that you don't.
I think so too, but it's been fascinating to me for a long time that I don't. So, I just continue to work my way through it.
I hadn't really thought of that aspect, to be honest. I hadn't thought that some people can't see it when it's happening.
Yeah, I think that's a very common thing, actually.
I didn't see it when it was when I didn't know how it worked.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. But once I learned that, my higher self, which is explained to be your vortex is your bank of everything that you want.
Mm-hmm.
When you're feeling negative emotion, you're not in alignment with getting what you want.
It's true.
You're cutting yourself off from what you want.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely true. But I do think a lot of people are probably like me. I don't know what the percentage is or whatever, but
yeah.
I think a lot of people, it's very easy when you get into that negative place to just kind of forget where the positive is. Because you're just so focused on how bad it feels and, how frustrating the weekend was, or how frustrating it is to look at, what's coming up in the week, and, you don't really want to be doing the work, or you don't want to be, taking care of this person, or you don't want to be, doing this other thing. There's like this endless cycle of stuff that doesn't feel good. And especially if you're in a depressed state. If you're in a depressed state, you can hardly see anything beyond depression. That's the worst part about being in depression. You just can't see anything else.
The interesting thing, nobody recommends revenge.
No, they never really do they? Probably a good thing, actually.
No, not at all. You know how much relief and release you get from depression to revenge?
Well, I understand the shifting of the feeling. Yeah, I just wouldn't recommend actually carrying it out, is what I'm saying.
Why not? Because don't you want the person to have relief and release?
I don't want to do it if they spend somebody else getting the hit over the head. I personally think we can actually release our emotions and our feelings without beating up on somebody else.
Yeah, so we're not recommending that you stay there for long.
True.
But we're recommending that you move up from revenge to rage, from rage to anger, anger to frustration, frustration to I don't care.
Yeah,
To
and actually, I like to recommend.
To hope.
I like to recommend actually jumping in the largest leaps you can, the ones that you can see that are within your visual or emotional range. So,
agreed. But for most people, I don't think that they can have those quantum leaps without drastic side effects.
I think it depends how large the leap is. I mean, I have found that there are times where I couldn't reach from, say, depression up to feeling good, but I could probably usually leap pretty quickly from depression to frustration, which is like 4 or 5 steps up the scale. So I might be able to. Maybe I can't take 22 steps in one leap, but I can sometimes take 4 or 5.
Are you sure it's depression though?
Well, it's been a while since I've been there, but yeah, when I was there. Yeah, I mean, not always. Sometimes I couldn't. Sometimes I couldn't move that quickly. Sometimes I just had to get to rage first. But there were other times where, I was already on the way out in a sense. I had already started to climb out of the depression, and then I could see further up the scale.
Mm.
It just depends. I mean, it's not like it's a black and white thing. It's not like it's always one or the other. It varies.
I think there's a natural process where the emotions are linked somehow, and that if we just sort of get into that witness mode and just watch it, it will naturally evolve.
Yeah, I think so.
By just being in that meditative state, you might say, or sometimes we're doing it right on the spot when we're feeling the feeling. But I think for me, the key I've been learning in my relationships is to not feel like I have to act it out, that I have to express it to in order to get through the feeling, that I can take it, like on my own. I can process it. I can work with it in a more meditative place instead of feeling like I've got to act it out on other people, and show them the depth of my rage or the depth of my frustration. Or
I think you have a point. I mean, you can experience revenge in your thoughts without acting them out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And our thoughts create our reality, so don't want to stay there too long.
No, not really.
But
you can work it through mentally, I think, to a lot.
Yeah. Well, some people recommend, like, for example, like doing yoga, and when you're in a particular body pose, you feel one of these feelings, and you just sort of sit with it. Or I do it mainly through meditation, but I'm thinking of adding yoga because I had a person tell me it's a wonderful way to go through the different phases of the feelings that you're having inside, is just to be able to sit with them and then watch them transform. And that's happened to me so many times, like I said on a previous podcast, especially at 4 a.m. in the morning when I wake up for no reason whatsoever, and I'm in fear. I'm feeling terror inside, and I don't even sometimes know what all it's attached to. But then watching it transform by just being with it, just being with that fear and accepting it. And sometimes I feel it in my body, and I put my hand there and I breathe into that. And by doing that, it begins to dissipate. It begins to transform. So there's a way to deal with this stuff for me without having to act it out a lot.
No, absolutely. What's interesting, when I was a child, I used to see death as a big black wall, and I used to fear it tremendously.
Mm.
And I had quite a few fears as a kid.
Well, most of us do, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing now is I hardly ever experience fear anymore. It's not part of my reality anymore. It doesn't have any hold in any shape or form. Now I'm dealing with a lot of different emotions on different levels, but just not fear anymore. It seems to almost be eradicated for me. But it's quite interesting, because I was trying to think, when was the last time I had a nightmare, and I just can't have the vaguest idea.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a good thing. I guess it also depends on how you define a nightmare too. I mean, for me, sometimes a nightmare can be like the most mundane thing in the world.
Washing dishes, yes, I know.
Right.
It's like, what?
Oh no, not again!
I know. I get kind of frustrated with those kind of dreams.
Although sometimes washing dishes actually is a way of meditating, so it can work either way.
It's fascinating you said that, because it was my first lesson in meditation. Because
no kidding.
I had to dry and put away, and my sister cleared and washed.
Mm-hmm.
And it became such a absolute routine 3 times a day that I knew where everything went, and I was tripping out. I was completely relaxed and out there for the half an hour, whatever it was, because we had a big family. To looking back at it, I realized I was meditating. It was like, oh my gosh. And a lot of parents are saying, oh, I can't let my kids do the dishes, etc. No, they've got to learn to play and have fun. And I was like, yeah, but you're not teaching them meditation.
Well, it's true. I mean, I have found, I have learned just by talking to my wonderful co-hosts that I had been doing meditation most of my life and not knowing it. In my form, it was meditating by walking around. It's my way of releasing unwanted energy that just doesn't feel good. So if I'm dealing with something and I'm down and I'm really kind of tense about it, I need to get rid of it, I'll just walk it off. Just, I'll pace the house. My wife jokes that we need a bigger house with a nice long hallway so I can pace the hallway anytime I need to. But it's true. I literally, whenever I get like that, I'll stop talking. I'll stop doing whatever I'm doing. I'll just get up and I have to move. I have to move and just shake it out. And I'm literally shaking my hands, at my side, like I'm dissipating the energy, getting it off my arms, so to speak. I had no idea that was meditation, but apparently it is.
Yes, absolutely. When you do Tai Chi, which is movement, meditation and movement, you realize that you can meditate while moving. The interesting thing about Tai Chi for me is that I started dreaming Tai Chi, and then I started having out-of-body experiences based on the dreaming doing Tai Chi.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Wow. Have you been doing Tai Chi for a long time?
I only did it for a year when I was 23, where I was going through a really lot of studying life, the universe, and everything, and I had a mentor and all the rest of it, and I was going to a Tai Chi class and had the most beautiful teacher on the planet, the most amazing teacher. I really got into the Wuli short form, and I used to visualize it again and again, and I used to go to sleep visualizing the form, and from there I landed having conscious out-of-body experiences, which was quite an interesting
I just started doing it about a year ago, and I definitely enjoy it.
Tai Chi is amazing.
You still do it?
I don't. I moved from Kung Fu to Tai Chi to yoga to Jin Shinjutsu, which is a healing art. And the fascinating thing about Jin Shinjutsu is, if you just take the simplicity of it, you take up your hand and you look at it, you look at the thumb. If you hold the thumb, you calm worry.
Really?
And if you think of it, a kid sucks the thumb, yeah?
Yeah.
I had no idea a thumb had that much power to it.
Absolutely. Just hold it for a while. It was interesting. I was flying to Rome, and the lady next to me was obviously scared of flying. So I gently leaned over to her and I said, "Are you scared of flying?" She said, "I'm petrified." I said, "Do you want to try something really simple?" She looked at me, "Huh?" I said, "Just give it a whirl. What are you going to lose?" I said, Hold your thumb. She said, "Okay, I'll hold my thumb." And she could see when we were taking off and leveling out, and then the light went off of the seatbelt.
All right.
She turned to me when the light went off. She says, "What is it? I've never been so calm on a flight before." And then I said to her, "Well, the next finger, the pointy finger, is for fear.
Wow, that's good to know.
And then the middle finger is anger."
No kidding.
Yeah, stick that finger up and you...
That's probably the one we all know the best, right?
Exactly.
Wow.
And the ring finger is for grief on any level. Actually, any of these are on any level. Okay?
Oh, wow.
And the little finger, which is for pretense, when that little finger goes up when you drink your cup of tea. That's for pretending or trying too hard and not achieving it.
That would make sense.
That's funny. I love that.
And it's so simple to get relief and release by holding your fingers.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's very powerful when you're actually having that emotion strongly.
So I have to ask you then, because we've all seen people who wring their hands. What's that about?
Wring their hands.
Yeah,
so you mean like
grabbing
like
all the fingers and like tensely holding on, or like cracking knuckles and things like that, constantly working their fingers.
Yeah. I mean, basically, they know you kind of learn with the whole healing art that your hands can heal you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you start playing with it. You start putting your hands at different parts of your body, and things work and things don't work.
Yeah.
So we've naturally always put our hands together. We've prayed with our hands together. You wash your hands, you're cleaning them together, cleaning the energy off. You start to learn that your hands do heal you. I mean, talking about waking up at 4 a.m. once I started learning Jinshin Jitsu, I went on a 1-day course and I was so excited. I went home and landed up on a 5-day course very, very quickly after that. And after the 5-day, I woke up at 4 o'clock every morning and I did Jinshin in my bed for myself for 2 hours till 6 o'clock. And it was such a relief and release. My nose started aligning, my bags under my eyes fixed, my backache, which I'd had for years and years and years and cried getting into the car, was alleviated, etc.
Wow.
And
how did you do that?
Just by doing Jinshin, just by using the energy. So basically you've got 26 safety energy locks in the body, which Jinshin teaches, and they get locked.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're doing is you're putting your hands in certain places to unlock them and let the energy flow.
Mm-hmm.
And these
Cool.
points are the size of a tennis ball, so you can't really get them wrong. It's really easy. And the simplistic part of it is just holding your fingers so you can relief and release. So I was starting to understand how the whole relief and release aspect can happen in many ways. You can do it through detoxing. You can do it through energy. You can do it through breathing, which is the 4-7-8 is fantastic. I don't know if you know it, which is very simple to teach people. And so, yeah, just getting relief and release in whatever way works for you is the goal to alignment.
And well, it's sort of what this
trumps all.
Yeah, it's sort of what this podcast is about, because we're talking about relief and release of feelings, right?
Yes,
because that's what you're doing.
Well, not the good ones.
Well, but you're letting them flow. Well, the good ones flow automatically, don't they?
Yes.
It's that relief and release of resistance. That's what.
Yes. With the negative emotions.
Yeah, it's like however that resistance is in our body. We don't even know what it is, but yeah, you could say it's all negative feelings. But there was a shaman that I worked with for about 4 years who he taught us to use our hands, our fingers, because he said that, if you go back into the history of human beings for, however many hundreds of thousands of years we've been on this planet, that has been our use of our hands has been as important as the use of our heads and our hearts. And he said that the hands are actually as important as your head and your heart, that to use your fingers, and because we always made things with them. And it was interesting because Terence McKenna, who's like this famous father of the world of psychedelic, experiences, said that when he's been on some of his most profound psychedelic experiences with psilocybin and DMT, that he meets these creatures there, these beings that tell him to use his fingers. They tell him, use your fingers, and tell people to use their fingers. And I was thinking, wow, and he always talks about it and he laughs and, like, what's that about, according to what he's sort of saying. But it makes sense based on what you're saying and what this shaman told me, and I had that experience when I was making all these different things with my hands. Like, he had us making baskets out of reeds and musical instruments out of, old bowls and things. We were making all these incredible things with as few tools as possible. So you mainly use your hands. And it was fantastic what it
feels
did.
So good, doesn't it? It feels satisfying.
Yeah, it grounds you. It it makes you feel like the reason you're alive. You're actually engaged with your hands. And I don't think it's enough to just be tapping on a keyboard.
but do you see that the programmer who's creating this incredible program feels the satisfaction? Because what it boils down to is making things. So I said this yesterday to somebody. You know what? I was really impressed with certain kids at school. They were the guys who brought silkworms in and sold them.
Wow.
They were the guys who made these wire cars, because I come from Africa. Doesn't matter that.
It's all right. You can include that.
shoe polish lids as wheels, and the long steering wheel you can hold in your hand, a wire steering wheel, and and they sold those, and other people. Yeah, I love the entrepreneurial spirit. I love the guys who are going somewhere, who are focused on achieving the best. Because we had shooting in our school. Hey, how's that? Good school.
Okay.
Different days, hey?
I guess so, yeah.
I'll say.
I'm sure they wouldn't teach that in American schools these days.
Probably not. No, not the first choice.
But, the guy that was really perfecting his art, or his 100 meters, 200 meters, 1,500 meters, or the 3,000 like I was doing, the guys that are really focused on achieving their goals, people came and helped them and helped them move forward with everything. And the guys that were, questioning everything and unsure and all the rest of it, they weren't really happy about everything. They were a lot more negative. So I kind of realized that people that had a clear focus, that were moving forward, there was something very attractive about it.
Yeah.
Very attractive. And I started to realize, my wife works as a nurse, and she works with dementia patients a lot, end of life palliative care.
Mm-hmm.
And she taught me that the guys going through losing their memory was very, very painful, because they had the marbles to realize they were losing the marbles. And it was painful. And then she said, once they've lost them, they're the happiest people on the planet, smiling from dawn to dusk.
Well, every day's a new day. That's the joke, right?
Yeah.
And you start realizing how much we're holding ourselves back by looking at the things in the past.
Yes. I have such a question about that, about memory, because I really wonder if we've overdone our importance on memory, and that if we lived more in the moment, if we would all have dementia.
Exactly.
But I mean, maybe in a good way.
In a good way, yes.
I mean, maybe
realize the benefits of it.
Right.
Do you understand why old people give themselves dementia? Because we create our reality, don't we?
Exactly.
We certainly do.
Do you know why they do it?
Yeah.
Well, they forgot.
They want some relief and release.
Right. And they're also, they say, getting ready for the fact that they're returning to their infinite beingness. And in that state, you don't need to hold on to the past at all.
And as soon as you die, as Abram says, all the negative stuff's gone.
Right.
You're only living in your vortex of everything that you put, the positive, the expansion. You're only there. Everything else is gone.
So if we become more and more into that state right here and right now, will we care less and less about what just happened,
Completely, absolutely.
Yeah. It's just that I noticed
we'll be moving forward.
Right.
Yeah.
It's something that's being presented to me in some of my relationships, because I know people who just, they don't remember that much about something I might have said to them a few days ago. And it's like, and I'm asking myself, is this okay? Because why do I care so much that they remember what I said? I guess because I don't want to repeat myself, That's one. But is that any?
It's not their fault that you're lazy.
Well, also, it's why am I into so much of telling them these stories of my past?
Yes.
Why am I into telling that as my excitement for the day? Maybe be better just to be somehow more in the present.
Absolutely.
With what's going on right now.
Although I have to admit, I wouldn't be too worried about repeating myself, because if I worried about that, I wouldn't be doing a podcast twice a day, 5 days a week on the law of attraction.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of understanding something that Abram teaches, which has given me some massive relief with all conversations that I have. Every subject is two subjects.
Right.
That was actually a big breakthrough for me too. I mean, when I heard the whole idea of the two-ended stick, the thing end and the lack end, that really filled in a lot of gaps for me, because up until that point, everybody was trying to explain to me why it was that no actually meant yes. And I kept thinking to myself, you people are out of your minds. But when I heard about the two-ended stick, I said, oh, well, why did they just say so?
Exactly. Mostly because they don't understand that.
Exactly, yeah.
They're just fighting for their point of view.
Yeah. Which is understandable.
Which, of course, is understandable.
Yeah.
And you fight for yours, but fighting doesn't feel very good, does it? It doesn't
Not
feel
really. I've spent too much time fighting. I have
yeah.
become a non-fighter, or I'm
Yeah.
becoming one. Let's say I'm a non-fighter in training. How about that?
Yeah. Isn't that great? I love it.
Because among other things, it just feels better. I mean,
Exactly.
not to
If it feels
constantly
better,
be
your
struggling.
soul is saying you're thinking the
yeah.
right thing. Go that way.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I mean, so much easier to go through life not treating life like it's a struggle. Because it's not a struggle, except when I decide that it's a struggle.
Exactly.
Which is the hardest concept of all. It feels
Every
like
subject, two subjects is not easy.
well, it is, yeah. But when you're in the middle of it, it's like all this struggle is happening to me. I'm not doing it. It's all happening to me. And so to be faced with the reality that, well, no, actually, I created it. That's a little bit of a sobering thought, you know?
I was kind of a Caroline Myss fan at one stage, and she said this, how many people believe you create your own reality? Everybody in the room's hands go up.
Mm-hmm.
It's popular to say you create your own reality.
Of course. Well, it's almost, the right
and then
thing.
she said, okay, guys, now who blames anybody for anything? Half the room's hands go up.
Yeah, right.
And, we think we don't blame those of us who really think we're out of it and we really understand this. Then we end up blaming our partner for putting or not putting the toothpaste cap on. Have we really got it right? Or did we create that, or did she put it on or not put it on? How does this work?
Yeah.
It is true, though, because we are so good at blaming. And I say that because I know from my own personal experience of deciding that I am not interested in blame anymore. Yet through that experience, recognizing all the different times that despite the fact I have left blame behind, I still bring it up. And when I bring it up and I recognize that I have brought up blame again, I'm saying to myself, wait a minute. I thought I left that behind. What am I doing? What was I thinking? And yet I keep doing it. I'm doing it a lot less, and I like that a lot. But it's just amazing how often it crops up. It's like we have patterns, we have habitual patterns, and I think that those patterns are what we're really letting go of when we're trying to let go of resistances. Those patterns
what a great way to release them by having endless podcasts and speaking to people about
it. Let me tell you, it works too.
I know it works.
It is a great way to do it.
Way to learn.
It is, yes. Richard Bach, once again, right?
Exactly. I quote that book often.
It's great to have. I used to have conversations with a couple of friends back when that book had come out, and then it just kind of like fell off the table, so to speak. People stopped talking about it. So it's great to have somebody else who actually knows illusions and knows the book, because that's one of my favorite books.
I love the back of the book. Do you remember that quote?
I don't remember what the quote was. I remember the picture, but I don't remember what the quote said.
If I'm not mistaken, that's the one that says, everything in this book may not be correct.
Oh, yeah, everything in this book may be wrong. I remember that now, yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's such a relief and release to have.
Yeah. Yeah, which kind of summarizes the protagonist in the book, from whose point of view the story is being told. And here he is. He's been going through this entire book with this master, this entire experience, and the master's been teaching him the nature of the universe and what how stuff really happens and how he has the power to make things happen. And he's been doing it using the Savior's Manual that the friend gave him. And he's reading through the manual. And finally, he gets to the point where his friend dies. And he reads, everything in the book may be wrong. And he says, wrong. Oh, no!
Now I can't swim in the land and walk on water anymore.
You're giving away some of the best scenes in the book, so I think that's a good way to have somebody want to go out and find Richard Bach's illusions.
If you don't have that book, you've got to have it on your shelf.
It is a good one. It is a great book.
There's a couple of classics, aren't there? Have you heard of Mr. God, This Is Anna?
I don't recognize that one.
It's by Flynn. There's no other name. It's just that.
What's it called?
Mr. God, This Is Anna.
Oh, Mr. God, This Is Anna.
And it's about a 9-year-old girl teaching this old man who finds her on the street where she's been beaten by a lost home and she ran away. And she's so aware, and she spends the next couple of years teaching him and then dies. That's how the book starts. It tells you that she dies.
Oh, well.
Well, that's a promising start.
So aware. I mean, this
Mhm.
kid teaches you so much in such a short period of time.
Wow.
You know this guy didn't write it from because he was a brilliant guy. You know, he actually had this experience. He just, you know,
Oh, okay.
it's really an incredible heart-opening book talking about emotions. You know, it's absolutely.
Yeah. But I find what's so amazing is that everything in our reality is our projection. That's what's so astounding, that we put it there.
Is it attracted to you based on your previous thoughts?
Yeah.
And that's an overwhelming thought.
To grab.
There's a lot of stuff in our reality. How could I have attracted all of it? Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Don't judge yourself by this lifetime alone.
The black gets really confusing.
How old are you? And she said, don't judge me by this lifetime alone. I love that answer.
To me, it just makes it even more confusing, but I understand what you're saying. The fact is that we are faced with this endless, I don't know how else to describe it, a pile of evidence. The evidence being everything that we take to be the physical world. And this endless pile of evidence is all attracted to us by us. I brought all of this into my life. And I look at it and I say, no way, that can't be. But I know it's true.
You know, if I look back on my thoughts, why am I on this call? I wanted to talk to other people that are really aware of the law of attraction. Wow, bang, here I am.
Well, that's why I'm doing the podcast. That's why I have so many co-hosts. Literally, that's it right there. It's so great to have so many people to talk to who know that I'm not insane.
Well, you get all the other insane ones to listen to you.
Well, that's always fun too, yeah. But that's what we love about them, you know?
Yeah, no. It's all our projection. It's amazing, though, that it's happening every second, that what's ever showing up is somehow a reflection of something that's in our vibration. That's what I find so.
And how often do we go through life saying, oops, did I attract that? Oh, no.
You know what's become fascinating with me with this law of attraction?
What's that?
It's absolutely blown me away because I've been interested in healing and I've been listening to Abraham Hicks' healing aspects, etc. And when you're looking at any human, animal, even mineral, okay, you're looking at something that incorporates the power that creates worlds.
Yep.
Okay. And you're also looking at something that is not broken, never was, and never will be broken.
Yeah.
That's sometimes hard to grasp.
Out for everybody all the time. It's a difficult concept.
Very hard. Yeah.
Okay. Then when I'm looking at people playing their contrast, let's use Donald Trump. He's playing his contrast.
That's well.
Fine. He's playing his contrast.
Yep.
So what?
And he's
in
loving
his
it.
process.
So what? Anybody who's begging on the streets, they're playing their contrast. Anybody who's shooting people is playing their contrast. Anybody who's loving somebody is playing their contrast. So everybody is playing contrast.
And that's an uncomfortable concept. I mean, let's be perfectly honest. That's a very uncomfortable concept.
Yeah. So the big thing that I'm starting to learn is MYOB. It's a phrase which my wife and I use between each other. And it stands for mind your own business.
Mind your own business. Yeah, I could tell. Yeah. So
it's also the name of an accounting package. I think it's a very good accounting package.
It is. It's true. I like the way Wendy Dillard says it. She says, "Stay in your own lane."
Yeah.
I like that one a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. So, whenever I'm poking my nose into my wife's business, she'll say MYOB, and it'll completely stop me in my tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa. And it's very effective, and it doesn't get used much anymore. It was a little bit in the beginning, but now it's hardly ever used. And it's interesting because the frequency obviously decreases as the awareness increases.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's really quite amazing kind of relationship you start having after a while where nobody's pointing their nose in your business. And they're letting you do and find and play with your contrast so you can find out what feels better for you and so you can follow it. find out what feels better for you and follow it.
One of the best things that I've heard Abraham say is it's actually a reminder, I think, more than anything else. But it's the reminder that no one else can control what happens in your life, which runs very counter to what our popular beliefs are.
There is no insertion in an attraction-based universe.
Yeah, but nevertheless, that's a tough concept. That's one we were so used to saying, well, what this person did affected me, what I did affected that person, and therefore, we draw that connection so easily.
And then the chain of pain comes.
Oh yes,
because of the chain of blame.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a tough concept. It is. It takes time to get used to it. It takes time to implement it. It takes time to adjust to it. But the good news is the more that we do, the more empowered we become. That to me is like the best part about it. The empowerment is just incredible, the level that we get when we stick to that understanding.
It's an interesting story. I was sitting in the sauna, me and my sauna.
Yes, you do have sauna stories. We've heard that before.
There's this guy who, I was trying to strike up a conversation. How long have you been in the club? New guy, never met him before. He was very evasive. So I thought, I just feel like chatting. So let me just see. And I went inside. Does chatting feel good at the moment? Yeah, it felt good. So I said to him, how old are you? Because he was looking like he was older than he looked, and I always wanted to compliment him. So, and he was saying, "Oh no, I'm 54 or something." I thought, "Well, you look amazing for that." I'm 51, and I look good for that as well. And he said, "I'm not going to say you look good." He wasn't going to compliment me back. So that's no problem. I said, "Lots of people compliment me. It's not really an issue." And he got more angry with me and more angry with me. And I said, "What do you do for a living?" He says, "I catch up." I said, "That's great. What do you catch up on? You catch up on your sleep or what?" No, I just catch up. I said, "Okay." I said, and I'm always going inside every part of this conversation. Now, this is a harsh conversation. People will look at me and probably not like me after it.
Because you're spending all the time inside.
and I'm saying to him, wouldn't it be nice to say something? Because I'm always thinking of what's the rocket of desire that comes out of what he says. So he says, I'm always catching up. So wouldn't it be nice to say something like, I'm always getting things done?
Uh-huh.
And he says to me, are you talking about glass half empty, half full thing? I said, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And he said, how can you? And I said, what do you mean? You're saying my glass is half empty? I said, no, I'm not saying it. I'm saying you're saying it. And he stormed out of that sauna. He was not happy with me.
Yeah, you kind of touched a hot spot there.
I hit some, I could feel that he's used this program before. I'm catching up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And people don't know what to think about it, and it confuses them and all the rest of it. And I was now nailing him to the floor on some old programming of his. That's what I felt. But the interesting thing is, every step of that conversation, I was going inside. Does this feel good? Does this feel good? It felt good all the way through, even when he left. It just felt good. So I don't know why it felt good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he learned anything from it or not. It's not my business. But the thing that I'm now doing is I'm so confident about what I'm saying and where I'm going and how I believe it and understand it that I can always go inside and check my alignment.
That is a good thing. And the fact that you're doing that so regularly, that's really good.
That is not so nice. Okay.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, as you were telling that story, I was realizing that, well, first of all, like you, I had no idea what was really going on in his head and didn't really need to know. But it did remind me of a cartoon from many years ago from the Far Side series, which was my favorite cartoon series of all time. It was a cartoon of a car that was on its side and a dog who had grabbed hold of the tire, implying that he had chased and finally caught the car. And the caption said, now what do I do?
Yeah.
He finally caught up to it.
He turned one over. Yeah. You wonder when the dog's going to finally do that.
Oh, God. I have to say that's one of the most brilliant cartoon strips ever. That he came up with some of the most amazing.
He was
amazing
incredible.
strips. Oh.
I loved his stuff.
Yeah. Well, we have about 5 minutes left in the podcast, and I do want to get a couple of commercial messages in. First one, if you are not yet a subscriber, you can tell what kind of stuff we do here. And Louis calling in today, that demonstrates we love to have listeners call in, because, I mean, Tom and I weren't really anticipating he was going to call, but look what it did. Look at the perspective that it gave to the conversation. It was great. So, if you're not yet a subscriber, take a moment and subscribe. It's so easy to do. The instructions on how to do it are on the homepage of our website at loatoday.net. Also, you can just do it directly from your smartphone. If you have an iPhone, just go through the podcast software, do a search for LOA Today. If you're on an Android phone, you'll need a podcast app first, but you can find that, of course, through the Play Store. And then once you have that installed, you can use that to do a search for LOA Today and subscribe there as well. Once you are a subscriber, and so many of our listeners are subscribers, and they keep listening to all the episodes that we put out there, so we keep putting out more and more episodes. But if you're one of that group, we would love it if you would continue to just keep posting stuff in your favorite social media channel that you were just watching, or not watching, listening to loatoday.net, because that is actively increasing our listenership in significant ways. And that is one of the main reasons I want to do the podcast, so that more and more people can get their daily dose of happy. Well, in order to do that, they got to know it exists, because most people don't even know it exists. So you're helping to spread the word when you do that. And finally, do take a time at some point. Give us a call. All the instructions, again, are on the homepage, loatoday.net, and the schedule's there, so you'll find out when we're doing the shows. Give us a call and talk, and do what Louis did. Give us your perspective on life, the universe, and everything, as Douglas Adams would put it. So those are the three messages.
One of my favorite books.
I know. Well, I can tell that because you refer to that phrase often. The only thing you have not yet said is the restaurant at the end of the universe, but I'm waiting for that phrase to come into a conversational point at some point.
Tom, loved meeting you. Thank you.
Yeah, nice meeting you, Louis. It's really great to hear your all your great energy you got going on. I love it.
Love hearing yours too. Thanks very much, guys.
Yeah, thanks for calling in. We appreciate it, Louis.
Have a great day for you guys.
Yeah. All right. You take care now.
Have a great night.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See, now that's good stuff. When you get a listener calling in with that kind of energy, that's really good.
Well, he's a talk show host right there.
Yeah, he could be. Well, I think he's basically auditioning for the next available spot when that comes available. So,
for sure. Yeah, he'd be great. He'd be great.
It'd be fun. And it was good too to have. I was just going to say, it's good to have a show with all this male energy going on, because so many of my co-hosts are female, which is wonderful. I love it. But, when we have a show where we have all the male energy going, it gives a different perspective as well. And that's a good one too.
Yeah. You should have him do one of my shows if you want. I'm not attached to doing 2 a week. He could do one of them.
Oh, okay. Well, we can talk about that. Yeah. Let's figure out what works for everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, that's okay with me.
Sounds good. No, I like listening to him. He's great.
Yeah.
If he wants to do it.
If he wants to. Well, I wouldn't be surprised. He did contact me about this earlier, so I wouldn't be at all surprised. I would say be very careful, because he'll take it from you.
Oh, well, I'm not attached to it.
Okay.
It's not something that I have to do twice a week. It's something I have to do once. I would like to keep doing it once a week, but
sure.
I don't have to do it twice.
Yeah, well, let's figure it out then. Let's figure it out.
Cool.
Sounds good. We got about a minute and a half left before we leave everybody and say, come visit us next time. You're a life coach, and your life coaching has played a major role, for instance, in the topic that we picked today, because it really taps into what people are dealing with the most, particularly on a Monday morning, right? So somebody who wants to have that, and sometimes you need to have somebody to talk to privately. Well, that's what a life coach is all about. If somebody wants to reach out to you, how do they reach you?
They can go to my website, which is youarejoy.com. That's the 3 words, youarejoy.com. And they can sign up for half an hour of free coaching with me. And from that, we can determine if they want to do some more.
Sounds great. Well, Tom, it's been a pleasure. And we loved having Louis on too. But thank you for coming up with the topic and leading us to a good place.
All right. Thanks, Walt. I look forward to having a good week.
Absolutely. We hope that you'll join us next time as well here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.